Welcome back to the Fantasy Sharps podcast. I'm Mark Emo, Fantasy Football Week 5 breakdown.
This week, we'll break down daily fantasy strategies, highlight top trade targets, reveal the best waiver pickups, and cover everything you need to know to dominate your home fantasy leagues. This week, we're giving away a Sam Darnold rookie card, an Optic rated rookie, Matt Stafford rookie card from the top set, Amir Gibbs Optic base. This is going to be a big giveaway. Make sure you guys stick around to the end for the keyword, and a Bijan Robinson rookie. So
stick around, get your chance to win, and start your football collection. I'm a big sports card collector. Female collects card now for a long time. So we're going to incorporate that into our podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy that. And we'll be doing some giveaways over time.
Eric was actually the one that got me into sports cards. I was into Pokemon cards, obviously, way back in the day. Everyone it was 2020 when the Mahomes Blaster, the Mosaic Blaster came out, and that was just fire.
The Pat Mahomes Mosaic Blaster is legendary. Yeah. Good times. All right, how about we jump into the games here? Let's break down what happened last week, week 4. Started off Thursday night. We had Giants-Cowboys. Cowboys 20, Giants 15. Kind of typical run-of-the-mill, I think, offense from the Cowboys side of things. I think the one thing that stood out the most is Rico Dowdle. I think he's starting to assert himself, get a higher snap count in that offense. I think Zeke's just going to be annoying all year long. Dowdle doesn't look all that explosive. He's a fringe RB2 kind of guy. Nonetheless, he's shown that he's a passing down guy. He's getting the passing down work, which is in people's just stupid valuable for RBs these days. Just gives you a lot more opportunities, a higher floor player. The Cowboys side of the ball, that's really Dowdle's who stood out to me the most.
How do you feel about Brandon Cooks?
I feel like we were always waiting for Brandon Cooks to come on. CD ate so many targets last year, and there was times where Cooks pops. Ferguson really seems to be the number 2, probably. Cooks used to be that over-the-top guy where Dak and the Cowboys just don't seem to take that many shots like that. I think if you got a few more of those in a game, you'd be a little more bullish on Cooks.
Yeah, I'm with you on Dowdle. He definitely stood out to me. Would you be trying to trade for Rico Dowdle, or is he someone you should be selling right now?
It's a good question. It's hard to buy him. If Zeke were to go down, they've even kind of tossed in Deuce Vaughn a bit, which is just ugly. They'll give him 5 snaps a game, which sure, it's not much, but it's just enough to annoy you watching the games. But if Zeke were to go down, just from a volume aspect, I think at that point Rico could be a serious asset. But again, that's a lot of speculation. And the more they split the 50-50 work, the less likely of that injury occurring. I think really a more bullish start for Rico actually would have been a higher snap percentage for Zeke and to pare down early Zeke and then let Rico build his role. It is a bit that way, but I don't know if Rico's clipped 60% snaps in a game yet. I'd be curious to see what his highest percentage is. That's just the only pause, I think. Pass catcher-wise, it's still all CD, and Ferguson's pretty much a smash at tight end this year right now. Nick Ferguson is as good as it gets at tight end. He's eating double-digit targets, a land of absolute brutality at tight end. But 7 targets, 7 catches after coming off a knee injury 2 weeks prior. What's the next best guy? 3. Cooks had 4. Right, so it's all CD and Jake in the pass game right now.
That's a good call. He's definitely the number 2 option. I have Brandon Cooks at the bottom of my bench in another league where I'm 4-0 and I'm really ready to get rid of him and just start looking for some rookie upside. I think that's just a way better play long term because he's just not really doing anything for me. My wide receivers are awesome, and I'd rather just have a rookie running back maybe or a rookie receiver that down the stretch when a team's just looking to see what a guy's got, capture that 20-point upside rather than knowing that Brandon Cooks might get 3 to 5 targets a week. He's probably 31 at this point.
Who do you think you're dropping him for? Throw some names out.
For rookie wideouts or like Jalen McMillan, who if Mike Evans or Godwin get hurt at any point, he slots into the number 2 role. He's got touchdown upside. Someone like that.
Jalen Naylor is a name, right? He's the 3rd wide receiver in Minnesota, but if JJ or Addison, who's proven to go down, he's a nice little handcuff for those guys, gives you a little upside. He took a backseat last week with Addison coming back, a guy with just a little bit of upside to consider, right? The Vikings are proven they're getting the ball to the wide receiver. Who else? What are some other names? Like, what about Commanders there? McCaffrey. That's a good name. Right? I'm a big Commanders fan. He's a name that Cliff constantly has been talking up. Dan Quinn's been constantly talking up. Zacchaeus actually put a nice game together this week, as you can see there. But McCaffrey's somebody they've constantly been chirping about coming out of Commanders camp.
Yeah, especially if there's an injury and the way Jaden Daniels been looking, he's just been looking solid. I'd like to have that upside knowing, hey, there's a chance Terry goes down and someone needs to fill that role and the Commanders have a really good record and they're still rolling. Something like that, I just feel like has way more upside down the stretch than Brandon Cooks. But if I was 1-3, I'd be a little less likely to do something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, you're right. And thinking about your record first thing, that's your starting point. I think in a lot of decision makings at week 4 here, whether you're buying, selling, overreact or underreact kind of thing. Guess we can shift here to the Giants side. Singletary's showing you maybe the floor isn't as great as you hoped it would be. He's still getting pretty good work. Tyrone does seem to be chirping away at some snaps. Malik and Wandale, probably the only people you want to own. Malik did have the concussion last week, so maybe Slayton's a nice little DFS play this week if Malik is out. Even a little sneaky waiver spot in if you're in a really tough spot at wide receiver here. The Giants play the Seahawks next week, which they got torched Monday night, but I'm not quite sure the Giants offense is comparable to the Lions at this point in time. So I don't know how much you can quite take away from that offensive explosion. But Slayton's a guy I'm thinking about if Malik is out this week.
There's nothing sexy about the Giants, but one thing you can hang your hat on in fantasy football is condensed volume targets. And Malik and Wandale appear to just be getting everything. And then just a little sprinkle to Slayton. I do like if Neighbor sits going that route. He should be a cheap option in DFS. I wouldn't go for him in Battle Royale, though. There's going to be a lot of guys who project much better. But if you're trying to save salary in DFS, he's definitely a good option, depending on Malik's status. Wandale's looking like a smash, especially in best ball. He was going in the 13th, the 15th round, just getting an insane amount of targets. No one wanted to touch this offense. But yeah, Malik's just looking incredible. You had to trust the talent. Would you get him in the 4th round in our league?
In the beginning of the 4th, I snagged him. I was in a tough little wrap there, too. I forget who King took right before me, but I want to say he took DK Metcalf, who I really wanted. And then I went Josh Allen. And then DJ Moore and Cooper Kupp were right there. And it was Malik. And I kind of to let Simmons just make the decision for me. And he left me Malik. And so I kind of took him by default out of those 3 guys, which I'm glad I didn't take DJ Moore because God knows what that's looking like week to week. But Cooper Kupp was a smash week 1. I was panicking week 1 after Cooper Kupp put up 30 points on the Lions and Malik had like for 55, which wasn't terrible or something. But Malik's really switched it on and Cooper didn't last another week after that heavy target volume, which we bring that up with Malik. That's kind of an issue we're seeing here. Malik's been peppered. He's got a concussion. He's got a ton of targets. He looked beat up out there last week, really. As a guy who has him in Dynasty and redraft this year, I would not hate to see him sit this week and just get right. It's a long season. We know it's concussion. It's not a hammy. It's not something lingering. Just regroup. You're wide receiver 2 on the year. You've produced. Get healthy. As an owner, that's what I do want to see from the Giants. They're also 1-3, and he's their whole offense. So they're thinking probably the complete opposite I'm thinking.
Is it safe to say he's a top 10 receiver already?
For me, he looks exactly like CD did last year from a volume perspective. It's a very similar role. The target percentage, the volume that runs through him that way. He is CD 2023, which was the wide receiver 1. Maybe not the touchdown upside that CD had last year, but volume side of things, he's in that category.
I'm going to give him a follow. Oh, shit. I'm not logged in.
AJ is still my number 1 after what we've seen this year. I don't know how JJ went number 5. He slipped past Bijan and Brees, right? In our league.
He was going 8 or 9 in a lot of leagues because everyone was worried about Sam Darnold. That was the biggest concern.
I think that's right. I think he went 8 in ours.
No one wanted to touch him. I think TJ Daniel might have even auto-drafted him. Who has him?
TJ Daniel.
No one was selecting him. I think anyone that had that pick was going to take Gibbs or
Saquon or Puka or
AJ Brown. I think it was just too much of a question mark for your first round pick, but obviously it's a smash. Same thing with Malik. Regardless of the quarterback, sometimes you just got to trust the talent. DeAndre Hopkins did it for years with no quarterback.
Sometimes it's trying to find those sneaky offenses that they just don't have a lot of talent. They got rid of Saquon. Devin Singletary is a great back. He makes guys miss, but he's not a workhorse. He's not a Derrick Henry, 30 carry guy. Slayton's been up and down. Wandale's kind of proven a nice slot. Still with the Cowboys this year, you're seeing it again. CD still has crazy volume. It's only week 4 here. Look at CD through week 4 last year, and then look at him through week 4 this year. CD's way ahead of schedule. It's not even funny. Dak's playing still MVP football, right? There is a cap to Malik's ceiling compared to guys like CD this year, and JJ's maybe not even quite in that ceiling, but like case with Burrow too, and you just match that talent with the elite quarterback too, that's when you just have the ultimate ceilings. I'm not quite sure Malik is in that, but he put up 2 touchdowns and 10 catches and whatever against the Browns. So far he's proven that wrong a little bit.
Well, you know what's a good question is Zeke's been doing it regardless of how much people trash Danny Dimes, but Tyreek's coming off since Tua's been out. So is it more about the talent or is it more about the quarterback? Because would Malik be producing with Snoop Huntley right now? Would Tyreek be producing with Daniel Dimes? I don't know. It's interesting because both Tyreek and Jalen Waddle have fallen off the past couple weeks because of the quarterback play, but Malik's been consistent every week. So Daniel Jones not as bad as we think. He's been playing okay. I don't know.
I think
Seattle last year, the year before they made the playoffs versus the Vikings, beat them. I don't know. Maybe the hate's gone too far.
I agree. From this year, we just zoom out or just talk about Daniel from this year perspective. Week 1 was a disaster, but they played the Vikings. That defense was legit. Week 2, who did they play? Was that the Browns? He's shown improvement each week. I think Danny's deep ball is right now a very big concern for his long-term trajectory as a player. But in fantasy, it is what it is. Look at Wandale. Wandale's the fantasy asset this year because of Danny. Danny's completing on his passes in the short area of the field well enough to make both him and Malik relevant. I think with the Dolphins situation, Mike McDaniels is on the hot seat from a situation like you're talking about, because go look at Indianapolis with Joe Flacco, right? He comes in the game and they win, right? So there's teams where the coaching is there, and Miami's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of their football team this year. The shine of Mike McDaniel is completely worn off for me. He looks like he's just playing Madden, running Devon Achane into the ground. The Colts are a perfect example. They have a good offensive line. They're a tough football team. They can run the ball well. They can run the ball right down your throat if they need to, even with A-Rich going down. That's something the Dolphins really can't do. They're not going to line you up in I and just Derrick Henry you to death. But Colts have that option. Good teams have that personnel in them a bit. I think you see the Chargers try to add that to their personnel this year, where maybe they haven't had that in the past, and look how that's working. Their offense is a little more dimensional this year. All right, Snoop Huntley was a Lamar surrogate for the Ravens because he just emulated that kind of style. I don't understand why they thought he blended with Tua style and running that offense for me. I just have a lot of questions on the coaching side more than the talent to QB debate that we were having with Malik and Danny.
Yeah, Snoop Huntley
He's just
did
not
look
it.
answer. Throw little screens to Tyreek. Where was that? I think they tried it and it just didn't work.
To the point, there is at some point, it's too much to overcome. Mason Rudolph comes in the game and goes 9 for 17. D-Hop and Ridley are irrelevant. I started Ridley in one league, and he's just been brutal for back-to-back seasons now. Jacksonville wasn't a terrible situation, but this situation looks to be quite awful for the Titans guys. I'm surprised that Pollard's called his own here.
Really just the volume, I guess. I mean, even Spears got a bunch of volume this game. If you're getting 20 carries a week, it doesn't matter how bad the offense is. Sometimes you're just going to get there on volume.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried. He gave him the ball 4 times at the goal line, and he got stopped 3 straight times, and then he eventually got in. If you just keep getting the ball, you're going to do good things, especially when your quarterback can't do anything.
Especially as soon as they let a 3-0 lead in that game, they just handed it off to him the rest of the game. Tony's a good football player. He's proven it. He had a tough stretch with the Cowboys. But other than that, Tony's produced every other season in his career, I'd say. So it's hard to hate on him.
There he goes. He didn't score here, though. That could have been 2 touchdowns. I think Spears took that touchdown.
Even talking about the running back room and in Miami, I think is unique. I saw Achane come up hobbled a few times in that game last night. I think Mostert's lingering annoyingly, but Jalen Wright is a guy I'm hugely bullish on. I drafted him in Dynasty. I was so pumped he fell to me in the 3rd round. Just a stupid fast guy. He's big. He can actually break tackles, unlike Achane. He was really the one downhill runner they do have that can beat up some guys, but they're not quite built that way. I don't know how high his ceiling is this year or with Achane there in general. Achane hasn't proven he can stay healthy. He got an ankle week 1 or 2. He's letting up gimping all the time. Finally, McDaniel didn't shove him 20 touches this week. I just don't think he can even handle that volume, Achane. So Wright should be an intriguing guy to keep on your radar.
For sure. 10 carries to 9 carries. Jeff Wilson Jr. had a knee injury right before the game. I had him in a few battle royale drafts. just thinking that they were going to split the carries. And then obviously there's nothing you could do about it. They announced that 20 minutes before kickoff. I think in Battle Royale, you can swap out your players, but I just didn't have enough time. Let's try to get back on track here. I'll go back to scores. So we'll just go right down the line. We did Cowboys, Giants. Let's jump into the Saints, Falcons. I'll go into the box score here.
What are your thoughts? I didn't get a chance to watch this one too closely. I know you got Bijan in a few leagues. What are your thoughts?
This one, the whole Falcons offense just got game scripted out after the 2 defensive touchdowns. They just didn't really have to do much on offense. That was basically the story of the game. Kamara smashed again. He was really the only story outside of Taysom Hill, who got hurt. Olave is looking to come on. He's a little more consistent. It's good to see Rashid Shaheed get 11 targets. He complete donut last week. Everyone calls him a boom bust player. Good to see him get 8 catches for 83 yards, showing a bit of a floor there. That's really the trio: Olave, Shaheed, and Kamara out of the Saints. That's all I'm really interested in there. Juwan Johnson, he's just really a punt tight end for DFS. If you want to spend down in salary, he's reasonable. He might get you a touchdown, and that's all you really need these days. Kirk Cousins, it's just really game script. I'm still threw for 238 yards, which is interesting. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. I'm surprised they didn't just run the ball more after that. Bijan picked up a slight injury in this game. You see Tyler Algier got slightly more carries, so glad I got him on my bench just in case, because he'll be easily projected for 12 plus points if Bijan has to sit at any point. Might even start both of them this week. It depends. And then Drake London showing his floor once again. 6 catches, 64 yards. But that's all you're really getting from him. Maybe 5 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Doesn't have quite that ceiling like you're going to get from Monra St. Brown or Nico Collins or even Malik Neighbors. Drake London's just kind of a pedestrian. Well, he actually got 12 targets in this game. He just didn't catch many of them. So I don't know if that's Kirk's fault or London's fault. But at the end of the day, he just hasn't really shown that ceiling in his career. Everyone thought it was Ritter. But now with Cousins, he still hasn't really shown that, but he's not hurting your team either. I wouldn't be looking to buy him. I wouldn't be looking to sell him. He just is what he is. And then Darnell Mooney continues to show as a good best ball pick, late rounds, reasonable flex, especially in 12-team leagues. Wouldn't really be starting him in 10-team leagues if you only have 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 flex, but he's definitely viable for deeper leagues. Kyle Pitts, he had his rookie year with Matt Ryan, went off for 1,000 yards. Everyone blamed the quarterback sins. They blame Arthur Smith, but he puts up a complete donut here, has 3 targets, doesn't catch any of them. So the question's out there. Does he suck? I don't think so. He's super talented, not completely quitting on him, but he did kill me for an entire season in our league one year. That's all I had in this game. It's a boring game that got game scripted out by defensive touchdowns.
Kyle Pitts hate club is certainly out this week and thriving. I don't know. He's been through a lot with the injuries, it seems like. Coaching staff never just seems to vibe with him. The reporters get on about the volume he's seeing. Coaches get annoyed. Maybe he's not separating, and so the offensive game plan's not all that heavy on him. For me, he's a stay away. I had him a while back. Sometimes you learn the best way to get rid of a headache is to completely avoid him. Sometimes the best pick is not the pick at all. Good pick is avoiding a bad player with your pick, even though maybe you're reaching. Kyle Pitts can be an example of that. I think you hit it spot on the game script. I did see that when I was looking at my phone. I saw the Falcons just get up big on special teams and defensive touchdowns, which will just kill a fantasy game from a game flow perspective. But you would have thought that the RBs thrived in that game flow. I still think there's a flow missing on the Falcons side. They're just not sustaining the drives, right? It's just a little clunky. You're seeing 12 for 6, Mooney 6 for 3. Cloud's really been annoying. He's just really sucked the value out of those 2 guys. He's tough to start, I find, but if you're in a pinch, he's a wide receiver 3. You can kind of just throw in. I think you're spot on the Saints side of the ball. It is nice to see him show a volume game for once rather than a 4 for 120 and a bomb TD catch. Olave for me has been a guy I've been looking at really hard as a buy low. He really hasn't tapped in, but we also thought Derek Carr was like P after week 3, and he's come back to earth a little bit here. So as Derek Carr goes, it certainly seems Olave goes, right? So as bullish you are on Derek Carr's season, I think you can be +1 bullish, even more bullish on Olave's season if you believe in the Saints and Carr.
Olave showing a floor, which is good. Definitely a good buy low target, especially if their matchups get better. Let's take a look at the Saints' upcoming schedule.
Always a good call. And it is nice, I'd say, looking at the schedule too early can catch you into trouble sometimes, more often than not. But right now, I think we know who these teams are. Injuries will happen, but if anything, then you're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. But what do we got here? Chiefs, Bucks, Broncos, Chargers. I guess the Broncos scare you a little bit with Surtain. You probably match up with Olave that week, but Chiefs.
Hmm.
How have the Chiefs been against wide receivers?
Their top corner, I think, what was it? L'Jarius Sneed went to the Titans, so I
Hmm.
know they lost him.
So the
Not a ton to scare you.
KC has three games so far, or not? Sorry, three players who finished top 24 against them in the first 4 weeks here. The top is Green Bay with 6. So they're about middle of the pack against wide receivers, it looks like here.
Yeah, I mean, Lad McConkey had a pretty good week last week against them.
True. Quentin got open too, I think, a bit from time to time. Just I don't think they quite connected, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's all I really had on that game. We'll move on to the next one, which is Rams Bears. What are your thoughts on this game? Waiver pickups, buy lows, sell highs.
God, I've had Pimenez. I've had Roshan for like 2 years now in our league. I'm just waiting for him. I almost started him, but I ended up going Bucky Irvin. I started Bucky Irvin over him last week, but Roshan did get in the end zone. I would say storyline coming into this game was the Chicago backfield and how that was going to shake out. Swift had his best game of the season. Certainly doesn't look like that's going to change really next week. I think they rightfully needed to give Swift one more game, and that's what I felt like ultimately. And I think we even chatted during the week. It was like early in the week, we were really looking at that game from a Vegas perspective, and it looked like a ton of money was coming in, smart money on Roshan, yardage props and touchdown props. So I think at one point Roshan got all the way down to like 155. Swift was maybe even plus 165 at that point, but then by Sunday it had really switched almost all the way back. Roshan had fell almost all the way to plus 200. 85 is where he ended. I kind of way just a little bit of kind of Roshan had wore off from that Jeremy Fowler report early in the week that he was going to get an extended look. That certainly didn't play out. The pass catcher side for the Bears, I don't know what to think of it. What do you make of the pass catching?
I mean, we went into the season thinking they had one of the best receiving cores, and we leave this game with DeAndre Swift having the most targets. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Keenan Allen was healthy in this game, apparently. Jay Moore and Roma Dunze. One a catch for 10 yards. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, they won the game. The Rams are very hobbled. It's not something to be like, proud of, especially at home.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot that comes down to coaching. I don't know. I just feel like if they had a really competent coach, this operation would be going a lot more smoothly. But at the same time, it's a new operation. There's a lot of kinks to work out. So I think you just need to give it time. They're 2-2 with a rookie quarterback. So I guess there's some positives, but yeah, it just doesn't really make sense that Swift leads the team in targets when they have 3 elite receivers or 3 on paper elite receivers. And then on the Rams side, I think it's just Kyron Williams right now. People are reaching, trying to find, that wide receiver I could target. Tutu Atwell was definitely an interesting pickup, but he's kind of like Brandon Cooks, where you just kind of know what he is. I mean, he's younger than Brandon Cooks, and he's definitely got that deep play upside. But you just kind of knew you're getting. If you started him this week, you expected you're probably going to get most 10 points. Whereas Kyron's just getting an insane amount of work week in and week out. So I'm not really sure about the timeline on Puka and Cooper Kupp. But if you're in deeper leagues, you can definitely consider these Rams wide receivers. But in shallower leagues, 10-team leagues, I wouldn't really be looking that way. What are your thoughts?
I think you hit them both right on the nail, really. I mean, even going back to the Chicago side, I think you got to be patient. Shane Waldron's kind of been a question mark from a play caller and play design perspective. The O-line finally showed up, but I think the biggest point that you made was that the Rams were beat up. I mean, they're just not that good of a football team right now compared to where they were week one. They don't have much. Let me ask you this. If you had, let's say, Cooper Kupp and Puka are out for 2 more weeks, who do you feel most confident starting out of the Rams wide receivers?
It would depend on the format, probably. If it was standard scoring, I'd go Tutu Atwell just for his deep playability. Hopefully, get like a deep 40-yard bomb, maybe a touchdown.
I like that
But
call.
looking at the volume, Jordan Whittington, I'd probably go for in PPR. Also, like in my situation where I'm 4-0, like I was talking about in that PPR league, and I'm looking for some rookie upside, I think he's an interesting stash.
Yeah, Puka injury really seems to be somewhat serious. It kind of stemmed from preseason. He went down like first play. So yeah, I think you're spot on there with Whittington is kind of the upside guy. If you look at his week to week, he's on the uptrend. I think you're right from the ceiling standard scoring perspective, Tutu's probably the guy if you were stuck, you'd throw in there just because you only need one play from him to kind of get some juice, where you're asking kind of for a little bit of volume of Whittington, which who knows, but I think Whittington is certainly an intriguing guy. Wicks is a guy who's getting a lot of hype here for week 5 waivers. Similar guy here, kind of ascending into a role from an injury.
Oh,
So, yeah, Texas wide receiver, I mean, that's crazy. Texas had Mitchell, him, and
Xavier
Xavier
Worthy.
Worthy. Crazy wide receiving
Yeah.
core. I didn't know that he went to Texas.
Yeah, I would definitely add Whittington to that list we had before with Jalen McMillan. And who was your guy?
Jalen Naylor, kind of. But even
Right,
so,
right.
I think I like Whittington even more so, just from a ascending point. He's got the role, and Puka's hurt, right? Where in Jalen Naylor's situation, you kind of need somebody to get hurt. Puka and Cup are actually hurt, so he's there. The opportunity is there for one of those guys to ascend. And, from a fantasy perspective, it seems like Whittington kind of has the most upside. Demarcus Robbins is going to be in his role, and Tutu's going to be a deep shot kind of guy. So,
yeah, I agree. So this next game, the Vikings-Packers, we went into the week not knowing what Jordan Love's status was. We weren't really sure about this one. Sam Darnold, even though he's been doing well all season, there was still question marks if he can go on the road and beat a rival. And it ended up being the top game stack for DFS. If you had Jordan Love double stacks, you were crushing it. If you had Aaron Jones as your bring back, you were looking pretty good. So yeah, let's take a look at this one. We'll go into the box score.
Yeah, I was
Pretty much
watching
everyone went off in this game.
Jaden Reed is my homie this year. I love Jaden Reed so much. He's so good.
Debo Light is what you called him.
Debo Light. Last year, his yards per route run was just an incredible number. Writing was on the wall for him kind of this year to just kind of, even if the touchdown request, I just felt like it just showed his every time he touches the ball, he jumps to me. From a snap perspective, he's interesting because he's not out there all the time like we see kind of from top wide receivers. So there's a bit of a sell high here. Watson's hurt.
Getting hurt changes a lot.
Yeah, I think that kind of gives me more pause. But, they draw a place for Reed more than anybody else in that offense, right? And Matt LaFleur has shown to be a really good play caller and play design. He's just always around the ball. He's my ride or die this year.
What do you think about Wicks? 13 targets. Christian Watson's hurt. He's obviously the consensus number 1 pickup this week. Do you think he could sustain this kind of output, or do you think this was just a 1-week thing?
Personally, I'm actually more of, if Romeo Doubs is out there, I'd actually prefer Romeo Doubs. For whatever reason, his nothing's just quite come to fruition for him. But week 1, when they played the Eagles, I'll tell you what, Doubs looked really good, and Jordan Love threw him the ball a lot.
On here.
Right, yeah. And that game kind of had weird game script too, right? Jaden Reed had a 31-yarder and a 70-yard touchdown. So the drives were kind of quicker, but I would prefer Doubs to Wicks still. I have Wicks in Dynasty. I traded for him. I actually traded James Cook for him because I needed a dump salary. It's kind of a interesting. We have a contracts and salary in that league, but I'm bullish on Wicks as a player from a talent perspective, and the opportunity is going to be there. He had opportunity last year and he produced. I don't think LaFleur's going to have any hesitation peppering him with 13 targets again if he needs to. But I still think Doubs is actually going to be the guy who really takes off from here. So he's a perfect buy low for me as Jordan Love gets healthier and they're not playing the Vikings like they did last week. I think Doubs will come on. I think Wicks kind of was the benefit of the second corner and not much of a game plan for him. But you still have to pick Wicks up this year. Ugh, ugly colors.
I had no idea he went to UVA. That was a sick play, though.
Stemming from last year, Matt LaFleur was talking about if there was a guy to become Devontae Adams in this new system, it was Dontavian Wicks. It wasn't Romeo Doubs. Just does a lot of things well. The point of the catch, he could be a little better this year, but that'll come. The inconsistency in snaps sometimes can mess with a player's rhythm. And so having him out there a full game, you could see some pop.
Yeah, considering you have Jaden Reed and not enough fab budget to contest with me, I'm going to just tell you right now, I'm dropping the load on him with Rasheed Hurt. I'm
Yeah.
going the Puka route. I'm hopefully I might get outbid honestly, but I'm gonna go $78 on him tomorrow or tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't see any reason wrong for it. In our league where there's Ray McLeod and I mean, what else?
so brutal, yeah. I
And
picked
it's
him
going to
up
be an
too last
asset for your
week.
team for 8 weeks,
I
right?
picked him up last week and I overthought it.
Yeah, you did pick
Jordan
him
Love's coming
up,
back.
but you were stuck because Ingram kind of tight end situation, so you kind of had to get a tight end that kind of stunk. But you did pick him up.
Yeah, it's been a weird start. My team's projected really well, and it just hasn't really happened yet. But I think as soon as
Pull up
we'll see
pull
on
up
the
your roster.
Risoners.
You have a really good team in our league. It just quite I think you
Looking at
signed
the
out, but yeah, I mean, coming into this week, it was not looking good. We played each other this week for all our followers out there, but I think you were projected 110. I was projected like 99. But ESPN hates my team to this point, to be fair, and we're leading the league in points. So ESPN and Mike Clay can go suck me.
yes, I'm only starting Nico Collins right now.
But I mean, dude, when you had Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, and Rashee Rice as your 3 wide receivers, and George Pickens as your 4, who's just waiting to explode. He's literally just a shotgun, just loaded, just ready to explode. Yeah. But week 1, you were looking a lot better than what you look like right now.
My wide receiver pick smashed. I'm pretty sure it was either when I was facing you or the week before. All 3 of them were top 10 ranked guys because Debo was hurt and Ayuk was supposed to smash. Nico Collins is the only one that's been living up to the hype, but I guess that's a lie. Rashee was fucking killing it. What am I talking about?
That's just so unfortunate. But talk about Rashee. There's been a little bit of rumblings here that he might not be so hurt, but so you can't drop Rashee just yet. There's I think they're holding some hope. We'll see. We should get a report, I think, tomorrow. But I guess there is like such swelling in his knee that they can't quite like fully diagnose him. So do not drop Rashee Rice yet. But that said, going back to your team here, I mean, you had Bijan. I really like Jerome Ford early in the year. I don't know why Stefanski from time to time just like out of favor randomly in a week without telling anybody or for what seems to be zero reason. Tight end's just been a disaster for everybody.
Funny thing is, all the guys I was looking at instead of him haven't done shit either. The only one that I could have gotten instead was George Kittle, but I didn't want him and Ayuk. I guess the double stack without Purdy would have been reasonable, just like banking on that offense going off. But he was even hurt for a week, and then Pitts was in that range. I guess the real move is just holding out and taking Goddard or Bowers or whoever.
Yeah,
Cade's been coming on a little bit more.
Value. I still like Ingram though. From an offensive perspective, I know Trevor's getting a lot of hate, but kind of your point about Daniel Jones kind of goes a little too far maybe, and people in fantasy start to kind of hate on the Jags guys. But BTJ looks like an absolute stud. He should only keep getting better. He's a good trade target. Kirk's come on the last 2 weeks. I think Gabe Davis you can kind of toss to the side. He's just going to be a cardio guy. They'll have some games. And I think Evan Ingram will add him another nice little piece to their offense. I don't know what it'll look like. It might be at the expense of Christian Kirk a little bit. But yeah, I think Ingram's proven time and time again. And even last year, Trevor really started to throw him the ball, right? Those last 4 weeks, Evan was pretty good. And down the stretch in the playoffs, he was a good tight end asset to have. So I think you're okay to stick with him.
It's funny because you have like a really nice 0 RB build. And you got Gibbs. What am I thinking? He's on the bench. I was about to say you have a really nice 0 RB build, but like you don't even have early round receivers. You just have later round guys that smashed. So it's actually a really funny build because a lot of the people that have Bucky and Kareem Hunt starting have like Cooper Kupp, Rashee Rice, and you could have hammered receiver early and just gotten crushed by injuries. Nice build because it's the classic hero RB build where you took Gibbs and then you just filled out the rest of your roster. Basically, that's kind of what I did too. I took Bijan and then my focus was load up on wide receiver. You went for a little bit more of a balanced approach, taking Josh Allen and Kincaid. I like that stack, the single stack. It's really nice, especially with Josh Allen who rushes a bunch. You don't necessarily need to double stack him. And the rest of his targets are kind of question marks. So like Kincaid single stack is looking really nice.
I could talk about Kincaid for literally so long. He's underperformed to this point. he kind of gets hated on for a low snap count, which I don't mind. I don't need him out there blocking on first down. That's one thing I think why you see sometimes a lower projection for him than other tight ends is because he's not playing those snaps. But there is something to be said for that. If things go awry and Josh needs to improvise, you get those points if you're not on the field, right? And sometimes those broken plays go a long way. But yeah, he's been a little disappointing. Could you imagine if Josh and Dalton had been hitting to this point? How like my team would be unstoppable.
Oh my God, yeah. Like if half the touchdowns that went to
Mac Hollins week 1.
no. Half the touchdowns that went to Khalil Shakir went to Dalton Kincaid so far, the outlook would be so much different. And same with like Mac Hollins just steals one. He'd be the number one tight end in fantasy football if he caught 2 touchdowns in a game at any point this season. And the volume's there. He's got the best quarterback in fantasy football at his side. So yeah, I'd be trying to buy low on Dalton Kincaid right now. Are you still high on Rashee? It's funny because I could have sent this a week ago and you would have taken this in a heartbeat.
Oh my God, I would have smashed it. The thing about Kincaid, kind of, because I can literally talk forever. This year, every time he touches the ball, he looks like he's getting hurt. But, I almost want to put him into Devon Achane category, but legitimately every time the ball's around him, he looks like he's getting hurt. Marlon Humphrey poked him in the eye, flew to the turf. I'm like, what is going on with this guy? He almost got that weird concussion in that Dolphins game. The dude kneed him in the head. I mean, he needs to toughen up just a tad. Dawson Knox has been a little annoying, but I think he's fine. When you watch those games, I've watched him super closely. He's Josh Allen's first read, and they look to get him down the field, so his average depth of target should come along. He's had some longer catches. That's what's tough with tight ends, too. The lower level guys is when they do come on, it's only going to be 6 for 40 yards or, 6 for 60 at most. If you can kind of get some stuff down the field, it's really going to help. So he's just such a tantalizing fantasy guy right now. That's one guy I lose sleep over probably on this team.
Yeah, he'll be all right. Yeah, I think
he
he's
will
gonna, especially down the stretch when they need to win big games, like he's just going to smash. I was going to say, isn't Shakir hurt?
Yeah, he kind of got that ankle thing a little. He kind of came back in, but he didn't really quite look like himself. So if Khalil's hurt, you think that gives Curtis Samuel a boost maybe? You think he fills that role if Khalil were to sit?
He should, in theory. I mean, they paid him $24 million on 3 years, so I just don't understand why Curtis isn't playing more. Yeah. That's the only reason I took Jerry Jeudy. It was him or Curtis because they both got big offseason deals.
Familiarity with the system and Joe Brady, Curtis Samuel. Just felt like there was good opportunity there
it's still early. I think he'll be fine.
Agreed. He came in. He had turf toe during preseason, but he's been kind of locked into his snaps. It seems like Brady and them are either limiting him or he's in a role. So we shall see moving forward.
It's just Jaden Reed consistently in the rushing game. Even if it's just one carry, he's that guy. Like you said, Debo Light, which just increases his upside so much if you could potentially take a goal line carry away from Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs only 9 carries. He kind of lives on volume. So to see 9 carries isn't great, but at the same time, they were trailing this entire game. So I think he just got game scripted out. So if you got someone in your league panicking on Josh Jacobs, I don't think he's a bad buy low, especially if this team's going to continue to put up 30 points a week. That's all I really had on the Packers side of things. We could transition over to the Vikings. What do you think? I know you love Justin Jefferson, as many people should.
Yeah, he's a sedative. Forget it. He's the best wide receiver in football. I mean, maybe he's not so alpha where he can just body you off, but from getting open perspective, Justin Jefferson is open all the time. It's like, oh, Justin Jefferson wide open for a touchdown. Sure, Sam Darnold can make that throw. Kirk Cousins looks really average in Atlanta, and you take him off of Kevin O'Connell's system, you take him away from Justin Jefferson, and you just plug in Sam Darnold, and they're just rolling. And Kirk Cousins looks like old quarterback with he hasn't been that bad, so I've been a little harsh on kind of going back to my standard days. But I think Jordan Addison is another smash start, maybe in tighter leagues, but he's coming back healthy. That dude really ascended at the end of last year. Didn't he have 2 touchdowns? I thought he had 2 touchdowns last week.
He had a rushing touchdown.
That's right. Yeah, so he had 2 touchdowns in his first game back. Jalen Naylor completely took a back seat, who had 3 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks with Addison out. So that role has paid huge dividends to this point. Jordan Addison's a guy I absolutely love and would try to target in a trade if you can. And it sucks that he went for 2 touchdowns after his first week back because it's gonna be hard to buy him. Kevin O'Connell throws the ball a lot. Sam Darnold's doing well enough. No tight end really quite there to compete with. So,
who are some guys you're starting Sam Darnold over now?
Pull up the QB list. Let's look at this. Will be fun to see. Like, are you starting Darnold over Pat Mahomes on a weekly basis? You might.
No, I that's really hard to justify. I don't know.
They basically have identical numbers this year, those two, almost, right? 30 more yards, and he's got 11 touchdowns to Pat's 6 touchdowns.
He's leading the league in touchdowns by 3. And it's funny because these two were in the same draft, and there was so many questions around them, and people pretty much wrote them off completely. And now they're leading the NFL in touchdowns. What the hell?
Are you starting Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray.
For the rushing upside. Kyler's shown a little bit of inconsistency. It's very close. I'm not a huge Kyler guy, but Kyler ran really well the first 3 weeks. He didn't look good last week, so let's put that into perspective. Kyler's coming off his worst week here. So I might lean Kyler, but it is close.
The question is, should you always put your best foot forward and start Sam Darnold in all your leagues if he's the best option? Or are you more like me who kind of diversifies their portfolio? And if I had Kyler in a league, I would probably just stick with him. And then if I had another league where if you're at quarterback, like our league with Anthony Richardson, I'd rather play Darnold in that league than like start him in both potentially, because there might be an argument of him over Kyler, but I'd rather play both rather than completely go all in on one guy. It's the same thing with DFS. If Nico Collins is the best player on the slate last week, should you just have him in every lineup, or are you worried about diversification risk? It's a tough thing to do because like there's nothing worse, especially in daily fantasy football, when you go all in on the chalk player like Nico Collins, or let's just say last week Rasheed wasn't a top play last week, but let's just say he was, and then he gets hurt and it puts up a donut, like, and it kills all lineups. You're losing a lot of money, so it's hard. It's hard to go all in on someone. So I don't know if I should be picking up Darnold in more leagues or really just one and see if he pans out. But
I would
definitely
say
gonna try that.
The question around him is, do you think he's real or not? And I don't know how you can say no. He's got a good gut. He's got a good coach. He's got a good play caller. He's got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. On the outside, he's got Aaron Jones behind him, who's good at catching passes. Ty Chandler's not a slouch. Vikings and Sam Darnold are for real, as much as can't even envision it. It's for real. Did you see Eric traded Mahomes and got Lamar, which whatever you want to say about that value or that trade, he had to give up D-Hop. So there was a trade, Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins for Lamar Jackson, which the guy who traded Lamar is a little checked out. But even so, I think trading Patrick Mahomes for anybody is an acceptable trade in fantasy football. What did you think of that trade?
I think it's completely reasonable. It's just going to be funny when Mahomes puts up a 40-piece this week.
He's throwing for 4 touchdowns on Monday Night Football right in your face, dude. Like, it's happening. And Lamar's gonna rush 20 yards and throw for 180, and Derrick Henry's gonna have 3 1-yard touchdowns. And Justice Hill.
There's nothing wrong with the trade. The Mahomes hate right now reminds me of the Brady hate when everyone was like, oh, it's over for him. And then he went on to win like 2 or 3 more Super Bowls. And every time the media was like, oh, is this it for Brady? Like when they lost to the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football when Kareem went off. Or I don't know if that was Monday night. I can't remember. Sunday Night Football, Brady didn't play great. Everyone thought it was over. And I'm pretty sure they either won the Super Bowl that year or he obviously won another one after that at some point. But it's just funny to hear like, you have like one bad game or you have a slow start to the season. Same thing last year. The Chiefs didn't have a good season all year and they still won it all. So I don't know. If I had Mahomes right now, I wouldn't be selling. It's way better to sell Mahomes after a huge game. Like there's been way better times in fantasy football history to sell Mahomes and no one's done it. And now just seems like the absolute rock bottom time, especially if he's healthy. And what if they get Devontae Adams? What if Devontae Adams just says, fuck the Jets. I love you, Aaron, but I want to win a Super Bowl. And if I go to the Chiefs, that's my best chance. And as a Jets fan, I hate to say that, but like if that happens, that changes the entire outlook on Patrick Mahomes rest of season. And I don't think Lamar's ever thrown for over 1,000 yards to a receiver outside of, I think Zay Flowers was the first last year. I'm not 100% on that fact, but
You got it by like 5 yards, probably.
probably got it by 5 yards. But you're really just banking on the rushing upside. But if Derrick Henry keeps getting 2-3 touchdowns a game, that just really caps his upside. So I don't know. I think it's a reasonable trade for now, but I personally wouldn't have been selling Mahomes. I was actually trying to buy him off Eric pretty hard.
Yeah,
But
I'd be more in the camp of buying Mahomes than selling him personally. He's just too good. You just time and time again, these players prove you wrong when you bet against them. And sure, Rasheed's out. Travis Kelce could easily ascend into his old role. Who knows what we'll do. I think the Chiefs are a good team. Who I really think benefits the most from all of this is Kareem Hunt. I love Kareem Hunt going forward personally. Carson lost the job. It's going to be annoying, but right up on ESPN something about P-Ryan stealing the goal line. I think that was just from Kareem had just had like 5 carries the very prior. Kareem had 2 catches, 3 targets, 14 carries, his first game active. Like that's Isaiah Pacheco, right?
I definitely agree with you on Kareem, and I'm happy I picked him up in another league. I just had him on my bench this past week. He definitely won the job. In my opinion, the one who benefits the most is Travis Kelce. It's nice to see him finally get 9 targets in a game, 7 catches for 89 yards. He should uptick as the season goes on. Kareem, just looking like a smash waiver pickup, pending on. I don't know. What do you think about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I threw him on my IR. He was dealing with PTSD. I don't know if he's going to be any bit of a factor.
Who do you think they get rid of? Would it be P-Ryan or Steele to make room for Clyde?
I'd probably send Steele to the practice squad.
Yeah, because he's a rookie. They probably can put him there. That probably makes the most sense. And I don't know if Steele completely goes away. They might. It's interesting. Clyde's interesting. He doesn't worry me too much just because he's never done anything. But they should maybe give Steele another chance here this week to get a couple carries to see if he's on the team. You might rather have Carson Steele on the roster than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just from a growth perspective, future perspective. Clyde's giving you nothing, but
Clyde's a multi-time Super Bowl champion. Put some respect on his name.
That's true. He knows the system. That's a great point. And Clyde's a winner. Clyde's a national champion. Clyde won a college national championship. He's won multiple Super Bowls. He knows the system. The team drafted him, redrafted him. So you can't discount him. Absolutely. He's probably if you have an IR spot, why not? Right?
Look at this updated depth chart, though. I mean, I think they only have Clyde in the 4 spot because he's out, but real interesting to see Kareem there.
That is
preseason. It was Checo,
Steele.
They didn't even have Jerick McKinnon, and then I guess Clyde. But
they picked up. They signed P-Ryan after the Broncos cutting him late. The Broncos cut him late, and then the Chiefs picked him up. I forget who was that third guy, but it wasn't P-Ryan. Training camp, it kind of switched late.
I guess it was just Clyde.
It might have been
Pacheco, Steele, and Clyde.